Hi guys, it's Dom from Catching Z's Outdoors. Today I'm going to be making a video on how to refurbish your old and outdated lures. So this video can help you with any of your lures. I'm personally using a lure that I found yesterday actually. So we're gonna turn this old beaten up lure into a lure that I'll use just about every day fishing this summer. So as I said, I found this lure yesterday and I really do not know anything about it. The only things that I could tell you is that it's wood. It weighs about probably 3 or 4 ounces and it's definitely a pencil popper. It was also painted in a bone white color at some point, but as you can see, the paint is really coming off and you can see the wood below it. So in this video, I'm going to start by removing all the hardware on the lure. We have some split rings, we have a barrel swivel in the middle here, and then 2 treble hooks in the middle and rear. So then next we're going to sand down the lure to remove all the paint and grime and the stuff that's built up over years of use. And it'll also make the lure more smooth when I go to apply the paint. And then I'm going to be sealing the paint onto it using an epoxy, and then replacing all the hardware and equipment with aftermarket hooks and barrel swivels and split rings that I personally use. So let's hop right into the video. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is remove all the hardware on the lure. As you can see, they're very rusty and old, poor quality. So I'm just going to use pliers to remove the split rings on the 2 hooks, as well as the split ring on the nose of the lure. I have to take off all the hardware so that I can work on the body. However, in the end, I'm going to be using VMC hooks, great quality, and other aftermarket split rings just to improve the overall quality of the lure. So as you can see, I've removed both the rear and the middle hooks. However, I do still have the barrel swivel in the middle. And how we're going to get to that is there's kind of a coil on the rear of the lure. So we're going to have to unravel that in order to get to the barrel swivel in the middle. What happens is the metal in the nose and the rear is actually the same piece of metal. And so it just pinches through the loop of the barrel swivel. So I have to remove the piece of metal to get out the barrel swivel because I want to change that out as well. So as you can see, I went ahead and unraveled the wire at the rear of the lure. So now you can see that's just one long wire that goes through, connecting to the nose. So I'm going to pull it out, and when I pull it out, it'll release the barrel swivel in the middle, which I want to replace because that's old and who knows how strong it is now. So next I'm going to get into sanding the actual lure. This is an important step. You want to make sure you take your time on this. I'm using a hand sander here, but if you guys have other sanding tools, feel free to use it. Definitely would have went by faster. This kind of took me a while to really get in there and sand it properly. So you'll see a huge difference when you're applying the paint to the lure. It'll go on much smoother. The lure will just look better overall. So make sure you take your time on this. Alright, so now we're going to actually get into painting the lure. So first things first, you want to make sure you cover up any of the portions you don't want painted with painter's tape. In this case, I did the eyes. I just put a piece of tape over it and then used a razor blade to make the circular shape. So I was able to stick a dowel through the hole where the barrel swivel rested and where the middle hook is in the lure. That kind of made it easy so I didn't have to touch the paint at all. So I basically did a base coat of white. I ended up doing 2 coats on it. The base coats will definitely help your overall quality when it's finished. I'm just using some white that I bought down at Walmart. I believe it's the gloss white. Any of the whites will do. So now that I have my base coats on my lure, I'm going to go ahead and make my finishing layers. So for this, I kind of wanted to do the bone white. I like that idea. That was the original color. So I was going to go ahead and do that. So I heard Walmart has an almond color spray paint that kind of makes it seem like a bone white. So I'd highly recommend getting that. I didn't have access to a store at the moment, so what I did was I mixed tan, metallic gold, and white to try to make my bone white color. So I applied it to all of the body, making sure to stay away from the eyes. And so I'll let that dry and we'll move on to the next step. So originally I was going to leave the color to be bone white on the entire body of it. But after rethinking it again, I was going to add some color onto the top. I was just going to try to add some mackerel type color, because that's what mostly the striper are feeding on when I'm fishing down at the canal. So I went ahead and taped the lure about halfway down, making sure to cover the eyes as well again. So I'm starting out just applying some gloss black to the top of this lure. I'm doing it fairly lightly because I kind of want it to fade into the rest of the lure rather than being like a harsh line. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some other colors. I'm going to use lime green, forest green, and gold to kind of make my mackerel color. So I'm putting it in the cap of a cover, and I'm going to use a brush to flick it onto it to kind of make speckles. And I'm going to repeat that with all my colors. So I finished with all my colors, so now I'm going to remove the tape from the lure and see what we got. And now I'm going to be applying some bright red paint to the mouth of the lure. This is very common in traditional as well as pencil poppers. And then finally I'm just going to hit it with a final clear coat. This will just help to kind of protect the paint. So now that I'm happy with the color and everything that I've done to the lure, now it's time to seal it. So I'm going to be using some clear epoxy that will cover the lure and protect the paint, make it waterproof, and protect the wood as well. For your first coat, you want to make sure you go over it very gently and lightly, kind of let it absorb into the wood before adding your additional coats. One other thing I would recommend is in between each coat, I didn't show it, but I lightly sanded around it just to make sure that each additional coat is going on smooth. So we're going to let it sit for 4 hours and then apply another coat. Okay, so here's my second coat on the lure. Just spread it as evenly as you can along the whole lure. You want to avoid clumping the epoxy, because you'll be able to see that later on. So just smooth and long strokes if you can. You can do however many coats you feel is good. In this case, I'm only doing 2. Feel free to add on as many more as you want. So after your final coat, you want to make sure you let the lure dry for 24 hours before using it. Alright, so now it's time to install our hardware. Today I'm going to be using the VMC size 3/0 hook. I stay consistent with using VMC hooks for all my gear. I really like them. They get the job done. Never had a problem with them. So we're going to be installing one in the middle and one in the rear. So before I can install my hooks, I first have to put the barrel swivel back in the middle of the lure. So in order to do that, I have to put the rod through. So when you put the rod through the lure, make sure you start halfway. Look through the hole in the middle so that you can see where the rod is. So when you can just see the tip of the rod, you're going to grab your barrel swivel, put it in the middle hole, and try to get the rod to go through one of the circles of your barrel swivel. Alright, now that the barrel swivel is locked in place and pinned with the rod, you can now push the rod all the way through the lure until it gets stopped at the mouth, exposing all the rod towards the rear of the lure. So now I'm going to recoil the wire at the rear of the lure so that the wire can't come out of the mouth, basically when you're reeling it in. So to do this, I want to make sure I make a loop. So you can use like a pencil. In this case, I'm using a drill bit. But you want to make sure you make a loop so that you can attach a split ring and a hook off the rear of the lure. So now that I have the loop made at the rear of the lure, I have my barrel swivel in place. So now I'm going to add my VMC hooks. I already went ahead and added some split rings to them. Today I'm using the Rosco 100-pound test split rings. So I attached those to the VMC, and now I'm going to attach it to the middle barrel swivel on the lure. Just like so. And you can see how the lure has like free of play because of the barrel swivel, so that if a fish is on, he can't use leverage by using the lure to try to free the hook. So now I'm just going to add on my hook to the rear of my loop. And finally, the last step is I'm just going to add a split ring to the mouth of the lure so that I can tie my swivel onto it when I need. And that's my final product. I turned a beaten up old lure that I found on a rock jetty into a lure that I can keep in my gear bag and use whenever I need. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button below, and as always, subscribe to Catching Z's Outdoors for more fishing content.